Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build, and today we are doing a hotly requested build, a little village using multiple structures that we're going to take advantage of my second camp slot for. So, let's jump in and take a little look at this, because I am pretty fond of how this has come out. Okay then, so as I say, this has been requested a few times in the last few weeks in particular to do a kind of multiple structure village type build, so that's what we're jumping into today. It's drawing on some inspiration from a couple of the Through the Keyhole videos that I've done over the last however long. So I'll link that playlist up in the corner for you if you want to check out some of the sources of inspiration there, including this location and a few other little bits and pieces as well. But for now, let's have a look at where we are on the map. You can see we're down in the Cranberry Bog, imaginatively named there. We're right next to the Ranger District office there. That's the abandoned bog town. And you see Bootlegger Shack due north there. And we've got Watoga down here at the bottom. So, bottom right corner of the map. You can see the Ranger office there and the abandoned bog town. If you pass sort of between those, there's a sort of dirt track, single track road that runs between those two locations, and we're smack in the middle of that. So, the marker's ever so slightly deceptive in its location there, but nonetheless, let's get to the build. So, first thing I'm going to do, activate my second camp slot. Now, make sure you're doing this before you place down your camp unit, otherwise you'll be replacing your first build. So, for those who haven't done so yet. So there we go, second slot activated. First camp switched off. Let's get this camp unit dropped in the middle. Open up the build area there. As you can see, we're on a little island here. We've got streams and rivers all the way around, so that's a really, really cool spot in the Cranberry Bog here. And as we see, most of it fits inside the build area, just about. There's a few bits that get cut off at the ends and a bit of water involved, but that's about as central as we're going to get. So let's start with structure number one, which is going to be our house. So, I'm going to grab the contemporary porch here. Well worth keeping an eye out for on the Atomic Shop if you haven't already picked it up. Really cool little set, this one. And this is going to be the basis we're going to build off, that we're going to mix and match a bit. And because obviously we're building several structures, we're going to have to go very, very small with these in order to have the room to fit them in. So we're lining up with the road there, just to have that as a kind of central point running through the middle of the camp. There we go. Not going all the way around with the porch here, just going to have it sort of around, well actually I'm only going to have it across the front, but reach that decision in a moment. So for now, we're around the side as well. Drop some wooden foundations in there. I do like to stick with the wood on the floors here, just because the transition to concrete changes the sound a bit from the porch to the main building. It's all a bit odd. So I like consistency of sound there, even though I'm going to change the look of it. So for now I'm sticking contemporary walls in there. I did change my mind in just a moment, but you can sort of see where things are going for now. Got that in. Let's get a staircase in. This place is very, very small, so I'll have to use the framed staircase here, which is not ideal. I was hoping when I checked here that I was going to find a different texture here, so I didn't have to use the mesh, but turns out we've got different stair types, so I went with that. But for now, we are just on the mesh. I'm sure I remember Bethesda saying they were going to introduce some different types of flooring on these, but obviously it hasn't happened yet. I thought I just imagined it. So, let's get some walls in on this upper section. I'm just going half high, because, well, I don't want this to tower up too much. I don't want the building being too tall, so we'll have enough headroom if we use a half wall, and it prevents the thing from being sort of too ungainly. Drop these corner ones in as we're just a 2x2. There we go. So that's the core structure done. Definitely want to make it look a little bit more interesting though. Not there's anything wrong with that, but we're going to mix things up a bit. So, grabbing some log cabin walls. We're going to swap some of these walls out for those now. Nice and easy. We'll just fly around and do that. So there we go. Change the wall out for the log cabin ones. Of course, the problem now is there's no windows at the top, which really does not look right. So, going to have to change this up a little bit, I think. Fortunately, we don't have windowed options of the half walls on the log cabin set, so I'm going to swap these out for greenhouse walls, as those are entirely glass. Initially, this looks a little weird, but trust me, when we get to the fully decorated thing, it blends in a lot better. And it provides a lot of light, creates a nice little thing. Nice look up here. I'm toying with the idea as to whether or not I should have just gone and changed sort of two of the corners to glass and kept two of them as wood, and then it would be sort of like diagonally opposite. But I did not do that, so I'm sure it would look cool, but for now this works out quite nicely. So that's the core of the first structure done. Just need to come back and decorate later. Let's move on to structure number 2. So I was toying with the idea here of having everything connected to a single foundation, essentially, on this, and then creating streets using those foundations as well. But it kind of fixes the size to a certain scale, and it wouldn't have looked as organic. Things would be a bit more right-angle based, square based. So we'll break up that pattern in a bit. But for now, on this side, we're just going to snap some of these farmable dirt tiles onto the side, because I want a greenhouse. The initial idea here was to have the door coming off the patio there, because I wanted to make it a slightly more interesting shape than standard, so put the door in the corner there would be a little different. Didn't quite like how it worked out though, so we'll move on and change that in a moment. Now I've got these full walls in. A little bit uniform, a little bit boxy and boring this at the moment. I'm not a massive fan of that strip of metal across the bottom of them either, so we'll make some changes here. Whip these walls back out. Get some half ones in. So see, these don't have the metal strip across the bottom, so I like the look a little better. And we're going to change up the heights as well a little bit, make the whole thing a little bit more angular, a little bit more interesting to look at. Stick some more halves in. So it's halves all the way around the bottom layer now. And we'll get some triangles in there, so we can have some sloped roofs, just to, again, make it a little less of a box. The trial and error kind of throws us a little bit off whack, unfortunately, but you'll see where I'm going in with this in a moment. And be able to save yourself some trial and error if you want to build something similar. But you sort of see why I reached the decisions I did as we go along here, so there is that. So that's why I wanted to include it as well. Unfortunately, having a bit of an issue getting this roof on, and I don't really know why. It's a bit strange. But I started on the other side, stuck the flat one in the middle. Would have liked something a bit more angled, but seeing as that's all we've got. Then, for some reason, I was now able to snap that angled one in on the other side, up against the house wall there. So, it worked, that's the main thing. We'll extend this slope across, fill in the rest of these gaps. Got a decent-sized greenhouse coming together now. You see, I had to go a bit square on this corner, just so that I could have the doorway there. But, as I say, it just doesn't look that good on this corner, unfortunately, especially once we go outside, as we'll see in a moment. So, changes were required. Obviously, I'll change those windows there out for just blank walls, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to have windows interrupted by roofs. So yeah, it doesn't look that great on this corner. So let's pull this down and basically make it match the rest of it. Normally I'm all for odd shapes, but in this case it's not working. So take that top layer off. Stick a doorway on here. And I'm sure you can see where we're going now. As I say, it's a fairly standardised shape this, but it looks a bit more interesting than just a square. So I'll find that triangle, drop that in there, plug that last roof up, and there we go. So as you can see, relatively simple shape, very traditional greenhouse look, but it works better than the previous shape did. Let's get a couple of stairs in here. Excuse the people fighting over at the abandoned bog town there. We'll shove a couple of railings on this front porch. Let's see now. We have about half of our structures in place. So, up next, I wanted to play around with some prefabs just to mix and match things. I wanted each of the structures to be a little bit different. I didn't want it looking too uniform, obviously, just to keep it with a bit of an organic vibe. So, I dropped the red rocket in here as a crafting space. But as you can see there, on this particular position at the front edge here, it's huge and obnoxious looking. I really don't like the way it kind of is overbearing on this front part of the road. So we're going to push it back along and put it at the other end where we get a bit of a curve in the road. You can sort of see it there. So this now sits on a bit of an angle compared to the rest of it. And it also makes the rest of the space look a little bit more organic rather than just being a straight line along the left, you can see there. And we'll break up that texture a little bit more, that straight line a bit more in the decoration phase as well. So for now we've got that red rocket in. We're going to put a little shop here just on the side. I need somewhere for my vendors. So I want to have this between the red rocket, obviously, and I want to save that tree on the right. It's just out of shot for the moment. We'll see it in a second. There we go, that one. And you can actually bulldoze that tree, but I want to keep it in just to add a little bit more texture and make the look a little bit more dynamic. So rather than bulldozing it, we're going to try and stay just clear of it. We need to drop this down a little bit lower, just to make sure the building again is not too tall and overbearing on this side. It sits on a bit of an angle as well, just to break up the otherwise straight lines to make it look a little bit more organic. There we go. 4 foundations in there for now. A resource there, that's a silver deposit as I recall. So my initial thought here was to build a kind of shop in the sense that it's an enclosed building. But I ended up changing my mind on this, and we're going to use the doorway to provide access to the vendors and enclose them in the back half whilst having the front section open. It just looks a little bit more interesting, a little bit more inviting. So we'll just close off this back section here, nice and easy. If it wants to place, anyway. There we go, and we'll swap these front foundations out for a couple of contemporary porches again. There we go. I did try this with the corner porches, so that it had a bit more of an angle on the roof, but it just didn't look right, so straight up flat ones it is. Have a little look from down here. We can see the shape is starting to come together now. We're getting a general vibe of how this is going to look when it's done. So let's get some roofs on this shop for now. When it actually came to decorating, both the house and the shop needed the roofs removing because I had a little issue with getting things to place under them and jumping up onto the roof and things like that. So pulling them off in the decoration phase and sticking them back on afterwards was much, much easier. But for now, you can see what we're doing. A couple of railings in there. We've got some stairs on the front. We use the ones that come with the contemporary pack because they go all the way across and they match. And there we go. It's basically our structures. But one last thing I do want to do to this red rocket is put some stairs on the front. I do like the position of it right now. You see it's sort of sitting at the top of that little slope there at the edge of the sort of track here. But in order to walk into it, to path into it, we'd have to kind of hop the curb there on the building. So I want a staircase sat at the front to make that transition a bit smoother. Otherwise it'll be a little bit jarring every time we go in. So I'm going to line up foundations here with the front edge. So I've got a guide as to where I want the stairs that I'm going to put in to go. Obviously I'm having a bit of a problem getting these to the right height. As it turns out I actually want them a little higher than this, but I thought I wanted them a bit lower. For now, obviously with the door being as wide as it is, I want to line this foundation up with roughly the middle of the door. Needs to go a bit further to the right there. It's a bit of eyeballing required. It's a perspective and things are a bit weird on this one, so get it as close as we can. Looks about right. We'll stick one more on the end here, and now that looks about right. That's going to drop things down a bit. As I say, this was actually a bit of a mistake, as it turns out, because the stairs sit a little bit below the height of the foundation, I actually wanted to raise the foundation up a bit, just to make it match up with the red rocket a little more neatly. But we'll move that entire prefab out the way for now, and snap a second set of foundations onto the back here. This is going to allow us to position our stairs where we want them. So there we go. This is a trick I've used quite a few times before, just to place free floating stairs. So useful little technique, this one. And we can really see now that those stairs are far, far too low. So we'll pop those out again. So stick another foundation on the end. Pull that central one out again. Leave that alone because I don't need that. And we're going to lift this one because I've actually got a bit more room to position this without it jumping around. So I've popped it up 3 clicks of the mouse wheel there. It's press and hold the select key and just roll it up a little bit. So we've got a bit more height there. We'll snap this extra foundation on the end, now we've got the stairs on there. And that will allow us to take out the foundations that the stairs are connected to. Like that. Now we'll take this one away and we have floating stairs. So now we'll drag this red rocket a bit closer. This prefab is huge and awkward, so it's a bit of a pain to use. You really need to be on the corner here so you can see down 2 sides of it to carefully position it. So now we can just nudge it up to the stairs, get it the right height, get it lined up. Way too far over to the right there, so we'll drag it back a little bit. Try not to fall in the water. Yeah, come on, back a little bit. Unfortunately, the problem I'm having there again is that I couldn't see along the front, so moving over to the side a bit, I can now reposition it. There we go, that's a bit better. Still needs to come over a little bit. Not quite far enough. Drag that back a little bit further. There we go, that looks about right. Pretty even. So, last thing I want to do before we decorate and move on to the tour is to show you a little bit of how I enclosed this space. It's basically the same old junk wall principle we've used a lot of times before to sort of block up the gaps between the buildings, make the place feel a bit more secure and sort of contained and complete. So, I've put a couple of guard posts either side of the two bridges. There's another one down at the other end that's a little bit out of sight here and is destroyed. But that does continue the path on, so I've done the same thing at the other end and then plugged up some of the gaps between the buildings as well in much the same way. But a couple of guard posts here just to cover that entrance. There's actually a spot just up the road here with a truck with a turret on it that quite a few blood eagles tend to spawn on, and occasionally they get into fights with other creatures that will sort of spill down this road a bit towards where the camp is, so having a few defences in place is not a bad idea. So for now, I'm just trying to get this to sort of match the angle and position of the guard post on the other side. It's about right. Yeah, close enough. Just need to drop it down a little bit so that it's the same height. Looks a bit more neat and tidy. One more. There we go. Unfortunately, the gates don't quite fit in the bridge here, which is really disappointing. So making this look good was a bit awkward. It does end up sticking out a tiny little bit, but I tried a few different bits and pieces to sort of close the gap and to make it look neat and tidy. And I'll show you in just a moment what I settled on. See, first thing I went for was the encampment fences, but they're a bit on the radar-y side for this build, and they didn't really want to go in, and they didn't look that good when I eventually got them in anyway. So what I actually settled on after trying tyres was these hay bales. Drop those in. For some reason, these close up the gap nicely and actually look alright. They don't look too obviously like they're floating. They are a little bit, but at a glance you won't really notice. From the front, they're dark enough that they kind of hide the fact there's a gap, which is cool. So, the last thing to show you, because it's basically the same as what I repeated in all of the other gaps, we're just going to close up this little corner, and then we will move on to decoration and the tour. So I've got a reverse junk fence by the guard post there. Just closing up the last bit of gap here with this stack of tyres in a junk wall. Just get as close to the wall there as I can, and as close to the junk wall on the right as I can as well. And that should be neat and tidy. So, on that note, I'm going to head off, decorate this place, and we'll take a look at the finished product. There we go, tour time. So the actual building on this didn't take up very much of the budget, maybe a quarter or so, give or take. But the decoration, on the other hand, has basically filled it. So, as I often point out, decoration's really bringing this to life. See there, the two hay bales are really doing a nice job of sort of concealing the fact there's a gap there, because they're sort of shadowy. There we go, lots of trees, lots of plants, lots of colour. Nice and welcoming, homely looking little village here. Really, really like how this has come out. I think I'm going to be needing another camp slot fairly soon, because I'm probably going to want to stay here. Putting the extra trees in here has probably been the main effect on the FPS a little bit. It's not too bad when you're running around, but when you're moving slowly, it's a bit more noticeable, unfortunately. But otherwise, pretty pleased with how this came out. Lots of little bits of furniture, bits of decoration. Caged bulb lights hanging around there. I've gone for sort of orangey lights again here. We've got a decent amount of power, but gives it a little bit more of a splash of warmth and makes it feel a little bit more homely and welcoming. That's a seedy shed door that I put on backwards because I wanted it to open in that direction. So, looks a bit weird, but at the same time it kind of blends in. Makes it look different, so it's always good. Tiny little kitchen area, limited space, and it's a bit of a nightmare still, despite the changes in the last update, to get things underneath those stairs, so I couldn't squeeze a sink in there. Ah, nice little sitting area, a few bits and pieces on the wall. Gotta have the kitty present. I'll head on upstairs. Really like this bedroom, actually, in the end. You can see the trees in particular have sort of concealed how much glass there is around here, and the furniture's kind of done that as well to a certain extent. So it makes this look much more finished and natural. A little bit of space to sit, nice piano up here, bed tucked in the corner, a couple of stash boxes, some light, everything you need. A place to chill out, do a bit of work as well. Nice view over the water and the northern section of the Cranberry Bog from the desk there as well. We shall swing back downstairs, have a look at this from the other side. This little tucked-in bench in beside this table. I just wanted to keep as much space between the sofa and the table as possible, as well as be able to sit there if I want to. So, bench takes up a bit less room, which is why I went for that one. A little look at the Slocum's Joe market I've built here. So I did a few extra bits and pieces of decoration in here. Got a light, some Fashionac decorations. Gone for the Tipsy Tom vendors that are currently switched off, mostly because they're noisy more than anything else. You can turn them off on the map and still have them active, but then they'll make a lot of noise, so I want to avoid that. Definitely wanted to use that Deathclaw statue a bit more. For some reason, he doesn't seem to want to sit on little stone pillars, so he's on top of the stash box. Plenty of decoration crammed in behind the vendors as well, just to give it a little bit more texture and interest behind them. Make it look a bit more complete. I struggled with what to do with this gap here, because getting anything to place was a bit of a nightmare. If I'd had more budget, I might have extended out that way and put an ally in there, because I don't actually have one in this camp. But no budget, and that gap was a bit of a pain to build in, so with the resource there. So we will head up on into the Red Rocket. So I might make a couple of adjustments to this going forward, but for now, everything you really need in there. I haven't got a door on the front of this. Two major reasons. Firstly, I forgot to put it on at all, and by the time I remembered, it didn't want to snap into place because of everything else I'd done, so I decided to leave it. Lots and lots of bits of extra decoration in there. And the other reason is it's a little bit buggy and a little bit noisy, and sometimes it gets left open, sometimes it doesn't. It's just easier not to have the door, I think. Nice little view out here towards the abandoned bog town that we see in the distance there. The road continuing on over the little bit of river here. Take a little look over at the greenhouse. I'll put a few extra bits and pieces on the street just to, as I say, break up that line on the side here. A bit more of a curve to it, make it look a bit more interesting. We'll head into the greenhouse, which the major reason I wanted to take a look around in here is because in the last patch Bethesda made some adjustments to the collision boxes on crops. I.e., we can now place them much more closely together than we used to be able to. The corn in particular, when I experimented with it, I was able to squeeze 9 into a single farmable foundation, and I'm pretty sure I had room to spare as well, so a massive, massive improvement there. The gourds are still a bit of a pain, but they're better than they were. You can push them a lot closer together than you used to be able to. And no glitching required to do any of it, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, nice little space to keep myself fed and watered as we progress through the new season. So we'll make our way down to the front gate again, and then we'll have a little look around this place in the evening, because I do like the lighting in this place once the sun goes down. So I wasn't sure where to put my decon arch, so I just tucked it in by the gate here. Head through there to our bathroom that I actually remembered to put in this time. Appropriate signage there. Peer out over the bridge here from the turret emplacement. Tucked up on a stash box there, give it a bit of extra height. I did want to use one of the metal round tables, but for some reason they've been a bit finicky about placing on those lately, so I went with the stash box. But all in all, quite happy with how this came out. Pretty homely. I'm not going to want to pull this down in a hurry, so I think I'm ready to close down the old camp, the rooftop one, but I think I'll be hanging on to this one for a while, so we may need some more camp slots pronto, Bethesda, please. So, let's switch over and have a look at this place in the evening. And there we go. Nice little warming glow coming out from the camp there. Plenty of light. It's quite well illuminated in the evening, this. Gives it a nice homely vibe, as I say. I really like this look. Decoration came together really well in it, I think. I'm really keen on that. There we go. A few random objects tucked in corners here and there as well, as I say, just to break things up, make it look a little bit more interesting, a little bit more complete. Flashback decorations as well. Do like a little seating area out there, somewhere nice to chill out. Head on inside. Making good use of that Blue Ridge Caravan flag, seeing as I worked hard to get it. Let's scoot upstairs and head around a little bit quicker this time, since we're just having a look at the lighting. Yeah, plenty of light in here. Nice, warming and welcoming at the same time. I did move that tree just outside the back corner of the house there after I'd recorded this, because I noticed it was clipping through the wall a little. Unfortunately, not much I can do about the door clipping through things. Again, same thing with the lights on this market building here. Because I've got the vendors turned off to keep them quiet. The lights are also off back there. But it does create a nice warming glow again if you turn them on. Nice little look into our garage here. I'm thinking I may take the brewing station out because I don't really use it. Move the chemistry station over there and tuck a symptomatic in the corner, as I haven't got Solomon in this camp. So might be useful to have that available. But onward and upwards, we'll attend to that on a future stream, or you'll be able to see it on a future stream if you happen to drop by. I suspect I will be hanging out here quite a bit. Not so much on the lighting going on in here. But, yeah, really pleased with being able to squeeze those crops together. Got a bit of room left over to put something extra in there, so I might have to have a think and see if there's anything else that would be useful. Particularly given how hard the daily ops are at the moment. It'd be nice to have something else to draw upon, maybe. Give myself a little boost. But there we go. One completed little village in the Cranberry Bog. So, I do hope you folks enjoyed this one. If you did, please consider dropping subs and likes. It's massively appreciated. Down below the video you can find social media links, the merch store and channel memberships if you're interested in supporting the channel that way. It's a massive help, so huge thanks to everybody who's done that already. And if you get a chance, as I say, do join us for live streams as well. We're pushing on with the new season and continuing Remnant from the Ashes as well, so I do hope you'll join us for those, so we're having a good time. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very soon.